All right, let's talk about something every grad student has to face: academic writing. Today, we're going to break down how you can not just survive it, but actually master it. You know that feeling, right? You're staring at the cursor, blinking, and the phrase critically evaluate just echoes in your head. If that sounds familiar, don't worry, you're in good company. But here's the thing. It's not as mysterious as it seems.
Success in graduate school isn't some magic trick. It's not about having all the answers from day one. Nope. It's about learning a process, a system. And academic writing is a huge part of that system. It's a skill you can build, and today we're giving you the blueprint.
I want you to think about it like this. The academic writing pyramid. It's got 3 levels, and each one builds on the last. You can't get to the top without a solid base. So we're going to start right at the bottom with the foundation, mastering your sources.
Okay, level 1, the foundation. This is all about how you engage with the work that other people have already done. It's the most fundamental part of the whole game.
This quote from Isaac Newton just nails it. Academic work is a huge, ongoing conversation. Your first job is to show that you've been listening. You have to respectfully and correctly acknowledge the giants whose work you're building on. And that means you have to understand a very, very important rule.
Let's just be super clear about this. Plagiarism is the #1 no-go in the academic world. It's a huge deal, and the consequences are serious. But here's the good news. Avoiding it isn't just about being honest. It's about mastering a specific skill.
And that skill is paraphrasing. This is your absolute superpower. It's how you take someone else's brilliant idea, put it into your own words, and weave it into your argument, all while giving them the credit they deserve. You have to get good at this. And there's a method to the madness. It's a simple 4-step process. 1. Read the original and figure out its main point. 2, and this is the most important part, put the original text away. Don't even look at it. 3, write out the idea in your own words, from your own brain. And 4, now you can bring the original back and compare. Did you get the meaning right without just copying the sentence structure? That's how you build a solid foundation.
So once you've got a handle on representing what other people have said, it's time to climb to the middle of the pyramid. Analysis. This is where we start digging deeper.
Analysis is a major level up. You're shifting from just summarizing what a text says to investigating how it says it. It's like you're a detective looking at the architecture of an argument. How did the author put this thing together? What moves did they make to convince me?
And you know, a lot of academic writing follows a predictable pattern. Check this out. A research abstract isn't some crazy, complicated thing. It usually makes 4 moves. It sets up the topic, points out a problem or a gap, explains what the research did, and then shares the results. Once you see this pattern, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It's like having a secret decoder ring.
And hey, this isn't just for analyzing text. The exact same logic applies to data. A bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet? That's not the story. Your job is to find the story that those numbers are trying to tell, and then present it in a way that makes it clear. Here's a perfect example of what I mean. Instead of just a list, this bar chart tells you a story visually. You can see in a split second that in this field, researchers tend to use adverbs the most when they're being cautious, followed by verbs, and then adjectives. The data is clear, compelling, and easy to understand. That's effective analysis. Okay, you've mastered your sources, you know how to analyze. Now we climb to the very top of the pyramid. This is the peak, crafting your own powerful critique. This is where you go from being a consumer of knowledge to a producer of knowledge.
Now let's bust a common myth right away. In academia, the word critique does not mean criticize. You're not there to just tear somebody's work apart. A critique is a thoughtful, balanced evaluation. It's about weighing the evidence, seeing the strengths and weaknesses, and figuring out where this piece of work fits into the bigger picture.
Just look at the difference here. It's night and day. Text A is just description. It's the what. I did this, I used that. But text B, that's critical reflection. It's the why. I chose this text because, and then it connects that choice to a bigger academic concept, activating schema. That little leap from what to why is everything.
So how do you do that in your own writing? What's the secret sauce? Well, one of the biggest tools in your toolbox is something called hedging. It's about using cautious and precise language. And kind of funny enough,
Being more cautious actually makes your argument sound way more credible and sophisticated.
And here are some of your new best friends. Instead of saying something proves a point, maybe it suggests a point. Instead of saying something is always true, maybe it tends to be true. These little words make a huge difference. It's not being wishy-washy, it's being intellectually precise.
And here's why it's so powerful. Using this kind of language shows you're not being dogmatic. You're not claiming to have the one and only final answer. It shows that you recognize complexity, that you're open to other interpretations, which is the hallmark of a really careful and confident scholar.
And just like that, you've made it to the top. Your ascent is complete.
So remember the path. It's a clear journey. You start by respectfully understanding your sources. Then you learn to analyze the evidence, to see how arguments are built. And finally, you take all of that and you craft your own critique. You add your own voice to the conversation.
This pyramid isn't just a theory. It's a set of tools. And now those tools are yours. You have the framework, you have the skills, and you have a perspective that is completely unique. So the real question is, what are you going to build? What's the argument that only you can make?
Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle one of the biggest, most intimidating projects in anyone's academic life, the major research paper. Doesn't matter if it's a thesis or dissertation, we are going to demystify this thing and break it down into a simple step-by-step guide. Let's dive in. Sir Isaac Newton really nailed the whole spirit of research with this quote. No idea just pops out of nowhere. Your work, your paper, it's all part of a huge ongoing conversation with all the brilliant minds that came before you. Your job is to really listen to what they've said, build on their work, and then add your own unique voice to that conversation. And for a lot of grad students, adding that voice feels like staring down a 15,000-word dragon. Yeah, that number can feel pretty intimidating. It's a beast. But that is exactly why we're here, to hand you the map you need to navigate this thing. And here is that map. We'll start by facing that dragon head-on. Then we'll draw a clear blueprint, build the core of your paper, frame your story, and finally, add that crucial last polish. All right, first up, facing the dissertation dragon. Before you can slay it, you gotta understand what it is you're up against. Okay, section 2 is all about drawing your blueprint. This is where we turn that terrifying blank page into a solid, concrete plan of attack. So the whole game here is about narrowing your focus. You have to go from broad to super specific. Start by just brainstorming topics you're actually passionate about. Then break those down into smaller subtopics. But here's the most critical step. You have to turn those subtopics into answerable research questions. A huge, vague question like, which teaching method is best, is a dead end. But you can turn that into something you can actually research, like, what are teachers' beliefs about using communicative methods in really big classrooms? See the difference? That's a question you can build a paper on. Now, as you're gathering your sources for your literature review, you need to be a tough critic. Here's a super simple but really powerful tool for that, the 3R formula. First, is it relevant? Does it actually speak to your specific questions? Second, is it recent? Academic fields move fast, so you need up-to-date info. And third, is it reliable? Is this a credible, peer-reviewed academic source? If you can check all 3 boxes, you've got a winner. So what does this all look like when you put it together? Well, most dissertations follow this classic 6-chapter structure. You can see the typical word counts for each section right here. When you break that big 15,000-word number down into these smaller, manageable chunks, well, that dragon starts to look a lot less scary, doesn't it? All right, let's move into section 3, building the core. This is the absolute heart of your research. It's where you present what you found and, this is key, what it all actually means. Now, here's a really common trap people fall into, mixing up the results and discussion chapters. So let's make this crystal clear. Your results chapter is just about objectively reporting what you found. It's descriptive. Here are the charts, here are the stats, here are the quotes from interviews. That's it. The discussion chapter, on the other hand, is where you interpret all that data. It's where you answer the big so what question. This is where you explain what your results mean and why they matter to the larger field. And check this out. This is a perfect example of how to present your findings. Instead of just saying something dry like, participants were influenced by their teachers, you use a direct quote from your data. A quote like this just brings your research to life. It makes your findings so much more powerful and believable. Okay, the core of your paper is built. Now it's time to frame it. Your introduction and conclusion aren't just bookends you slap on at the end. No way. They are the powerful opening and closing arguments that tell your academic story and guide your reader from start to finish. And before your reader even gets to page 1, they're going to meet your abstract. Think of this as your entire dissertation crammed into a 250-word nutshell. It's usually the last thing you write, but it's the very first thing anyone reads. So it has to be sharp. It needs to cover your purpose, your methods, your key findings, and your conclusions, a perfect little snapshot of your entire project. A really strong introduction usually follows this 3-step model called creating a research space. It's simple, but so effective. First, you establish the field. You set the scene and give the broad context. Second, you identify a gap. You show what's missing or what question hasn't been answered in the existing research. And finally, you state your mission. You declare how your research is going to step in and fill that gap. This structure gives your paper a powerful reason to exist. Believe it or not, even the acknowledgments section has a kind of unspoken etiquette. There's a hierarchy. You generally start with your supervisor, the person who provided all that academic guidance. Next, you thank your research participants. Without them, you wouldn't have any data. And finally, you acknowledge the family and friends who gave you all that personal support to get through the journey. All right, you have done the heavy lifting. You've built the structure, you've written the core, you've framed the story. Now for the final critical step, the polish. This is what takes all your hard work and makes sure it's presented in the absolute best possible light. So before you even think about hitting that submit button, you need to do one last pre-flight check. Go through this list and be meticulous. Are there page numbers on every single page? Is your reference list formatted perfectly and, just as important, consistently? Have you hunted down every single spelling and grammar typo? Does your argument actually flow from one point to the next? And this one's huge. Have you backed up every claim with evidence and avoided making those big, sweeping statements? This final review, I'm telling you, can be the difference between a good paper and a truly great one. So there you have it. You started with what felt like an impossible 15,000-word dragon, and you ended with a story. You stood on the shoulders of giants, and now you've added your own voice to that big, important conversation. You've slayed the dragon. The only question left is, what story will your research tell the world? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer. All right, let's talk about something every grad student, every aspiring researcher knows deep in their bones. That feeling that academic writing has this secret rulebook and everyone else got a copy but you. Well, consider this your official copy. We're about to crack open that rulebook and decode the unwritten rules that'll help you write with some real confidence. This question right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it all. This is what keeps people up at night. It's not just about grammar, is it? It's about identity. It's about how do you sound like you belong here? How do you carve out your little piece of territory in a field that's full of experts? It's a huge, huge challenge. And here's the big secret, the thing they don't always tell you, academic writing isn't just a technical skill, it's a social one. You've got to think of it less like you're filling out a form and more like you're trying to join a really specific, very strategic conversation. And, like with any game, once you learn the rules and the strategies, you can do more than just play. You can actually start to win. So, to get into that conversation, you need the right tools. We're going to start by building your essential writer's toolkit. Now, don't think of these as rigid, unbreakable laws. Think of them more like a set of levers you can pull, choices you can make, to get your writing to do exactly what you want it to do.
So these are the 5 big ones, the core areas where you get to be strategic. For every single sentence you write, you should be asking yourself these questions. Who am I actually talking to here? What am I trying to achieve? How am I laying out my argument? Is my tone right? And critically, am I making this easy for my reader to follow?
The first two, audience and purpose, are probably the most fundamental, and they're completely tied together. It really all boils down to one key question. Does your audience know more or less about this topic than you do? If they know less, well, your purpose is probably to teach them something. But
If they know more, which, let's be honest, is usually the case for a grad student writing for their professor, then your purpose shifts. It's about proving you're smart, showing you've mastered the material, and demonstrating that you deserve a seat at the table. Look at this. See how just one word changes everything? Looking into is fine, it's clear, but it's casual. Swapping it for a more formal verb like investigating, that's a classic academic move. It's a small tweak, but it instantly signals a more formal, more authoritative style. It just sounds more official. And the exact same logic applies to how you frame your main questions. Asking a direct question feels pretty conversational, but by twisting it into an indirect question, basically a statement about what you're going to do, you change the whole tone. It signals that this isn't just some casual question, this is a structured, formal investigation that's about to unfold. And finally, for our toolkit, let's talk about flow. To stop your writing from feeling all jerky and disconnected, you can use this amazing little trick called the old to new principle. You start each sentence with a piece of information your reader already has, the old stuff from the previous sentence, and then you connect it to your brand new point. It forges this unbreakable logical chain that just pulls your reader right along with you. Okay, so you've got your sentence-level tools. Now we need to zoom out. We need the blueprints for building your entire argument. These are the classic organizational structures, kind of like the narrative skeletons that'll give your writing a super strong logical foundation that makes your ideas a breeze to follow. So the first blueprint is a total classic, the general to specific structure. I just like to call it the funnel. You start at the very top, the widest part, with a big, broad statement that gets your reader oriented. For example, an author might kick things off with a fact that pretty much everyone can agree on. Yeah, reality TV is a huge deal. Then, you start to tighten the focus. The very next sentence introduces a more specific, more analytical idea, this concept of a fact/fiction continuum. See how the funnel is getting narrower? We're moving away from common knowledge and into a more scholarly way of thinking. And finally, you land right at the bottom, at the most specific point. The author gives us concrete examples that really illustrate what that continuum looks like in the real world. So we've gone from the super general idea of reality TV all the way down to specific shows. That's the funnel, right there in action. So as you can see, this structure is definitely not random. It's an incredibly powerful strategy. What it does is it builds trust with your reader by starting on common ground, and then you guide them step by step right into the heart of your unique argument. All right, our second blueprint is an absolute game changer for framing your research. It's the problem-solution structure. This model lets you go way beyond just listing off facts and instead tell a really compelling story about a challenge and how it was overcome. This framework just feels so natural. Because when you think about it, this is the story of research, right? You find a problem or a gap in knowledge, you create a process to tackle it, and you arrive at a solution or a new understanding. Framing your paper this way just gives it this incredibly clear and satisfying story arc. I mean, look at this incredible example from Chile. It's so perfect. First, you state the problem. These coastal villages have no water, but they're surrounded by fog. Then you describe the process, this totally clever system of giant nets that literally harvest water out of the air. And finally, the solution, a brand new source of clean, cheap water that solves the crisis. You see how powerful that is? Problem, process, solution. It's simple, it's logical, and it's totally unforgettable. So there you go. You now have the basic tools for making smart choices with your words. And you have two powerful blueprints for structuring your ideas. You're not just staring at a blank page anymore. You're equipped, you're ready to start building something. So as you start putting all this to work, just keep this final checklist in your back pocket. This is all about how you position yourself. It means showing you know what the hot topics are. It means being really careful and precise with your claims. It means backing up everything you say. And yeah, it even means being brave enough to respectfully question the big authorities in your field. You do all this and you wrap it in that formal academic style, that's how you go from being a student of a field to being a true member in it. Because ultimately, that's what this is really all about.
Academic writing isn't just about proving you did the reading. It's about using these tools, using these structures, to tell a compelling, convincing story that adds something genuinely new to the conversation. You've got the toolkit, you've got the blueprints, so the only question is, what story will you tell?
Được thành lập 2018 bởi nhóm giáo viên đã có nhiều năm công tác tại các trung tâm lớn uy tín ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh. TOEIC FOCUS không chỉ có các bạn học viên giỏi là các bạn tiến sĩ, bác sĩ, nghiên cứu sinh, các bạn học trường chuyên, mà còn có các bạn học sinh lớp thường đạt được điểm số IELTS và TOEIC cao nhờ vào phát triển được năng lực tiếng Anh thực thụ. Khác biệt với các trung tâm lớn, đông đúc, dùng chung một quyển giáo trình rập khuôn cho hàng ngàn học viên, lúc đi thi gây nhàm chán cho giám khảo chấm điểm. Đa số các chương trình online hay học trực tiếp tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh của TOEIC FOCUS chỉ tầm 3 đến 7 học viên, dễ dàng theo sát các bạn, giúp tối đa hóa điểm số nhờ tích hợp nhiều phương pháp trong suốt quá trình giảng dạy. 100% lớp học luyện đề được hướng dẫn bởi thầy Quốc Khánh, IELTS 8.5, Reading 9.0, Listening 9.0 và không có band điểm nào dưới 8. Các bạn có thể theo học tại quận 6, quận 2, quận 9 và quận 11. Nếu các bạn ở xa, có thể chọn hình thức học online, giáo viên vẫn có thể theo sát được các bạn vì sĩ số lớp vừa phải.
Waves rolling in so slow. Trust the tide, let go. Ooh, yeah. Deep blue, take me home. Feel the calm in my soul. Stars above guide me right. Moonlight whispers through the night. Ocean breath, pure and true. Every wave brings me you. In the